The chapel breathes in darkness. A single candle burns before the crucifix, its flame wavering like a heart, hesitating between beating and stopping. The air smells of old incense, melted wax, and something else. Something metallic like coins held too long in dirty hands. The stone walls absorb every whisper, every breath, transforming them into echoes that never fully die, only sleep in the cracks of marble. The priest kneels. His hands, gloved in lambskin, are joined in prayer, but his fingers tremble, not from devotion, from something else. His lips move with the mechanical precision of one who has repeated the same words 1,000 times, but now they sound different, as if each syllable were pronounced backwards, as if the sacred Latin had been turned inside out and sewn back together with black thread. Pater noster, qui es in caelis. He stops, closes his eyes, begins again. Our Father who art in the vaults, hallowed be thy gold, thy interest come. No. He shakes his head, annoyed with himself. The correct words must be spoken, not out of respect for heaven, but out of obedience to contract. The ritual demands precision. The man who pays for these prayers, Lorenzo di Rossi, pays for exactitude. And what Lorenzo pays for, Lorenzo receives. The priest opens a small leather book, not a Bible. The pages are filled with names written in ink that looks rust-colored in the candlelight. Some names have been crossed out, others circled. At the top of the current page, written in a hand more elegant than the priest's own, is a single name: Antonio de Falieri. The priest's lips curl, not quite a smile, not quite a grimace, something between blessing and curse. He begins again, but this time the prayer shifts. The Latin words remain the same, but their arrangement, their emphasis, their cadence, all altered. It is like watching a mason build an arch that looks identical to others, except this one is designed to collapse. The structure appears sound. The intention is ruin. Lord, in your infinite mercy, look upon Antonio de Falieri. See his pride that reaches higher than the campanile. See his accounts that swell like boils upon the skin of commerce. See his house built on sand disguised as marble. In your wisdom, Lord, let that sand remember it is sand. Let that marble crack. Let his ledgers confess their lies in the rain. Let his contracts dissolve like salt in the Arno. Let his partners lose faith as Peter lost it on the water. Let his creditors remember their debts as you remember sins. Let his name become a whisper of warning. Let his bank become a tomb of gold that no one dares to enter. The prayer continues for 20 minutes. Each phrase, constructed like a carpenter constructs a coffin, measured, fitted, sealed. The priest's voice never rises above a whisper, yet in the enclosed space of the chapel, it seems to fill every corner, to press against the stained glass windows where saints look down with expressions that might be pity or might be complicity. When he finishes, the priest opens his eyes. On the altar, beside the crucifix, sits a chalice. It is ornate, gilded silver encrusted with garnets that gleam like frozen blood. But it contains no wine. It is filled with florins, gold coins stamped with the lily of Florence and the face of John the Baptist, patron saint of the city, patron saint of bankers. The priest reaches for the chalice. His hand hesitates. For a moment, just a moment, something like shame flickers across his face, a shadow passing over water. Then it is gone. He takes 3 coins, the exact price negotiated. Not 2, not 4, 3. Precision in all things. He slips the coins into a pouch hidden within his cassock, then stands. His knees crack like dry wood. He is not an old man, perhaps 40, but he moves as if already ancient, as if the weight of these prayers has calcified his bones, turned his joints to rust. Before leaving, he makes the sign of the cross. The gesture is automatic, meaningless. or perhaps not meaningless. Perhaps it is the most meaningful thing he does, an acknowledgement that he knows exactly what he is doing and to whom he does it. The candle continues to burn, the crucifix continues to watch, and somewhere in Florence, Antonio de Falieri sleeps peacefully in his bed, unaware that his name has just been spoken before God with the specific intention of his destruction. This is how it begins. Not with armies or assassins, not with poison or daggers in the dark, but with prayers. With words that cost more than silence and buy less than salvation. This is Florence in 1467, where faith has become merchandise, where the altar has become a counting house, where heaven itself can be negotiated like the price of Flemish wool. And Lorenzo di Rossi, sitting in his palazzo 3 streets away, knows this better than anyone. He has made God into a business partner, and business, as always, is good. Florence in the morning arrives like a merchant's inventory, methodical, precise, categorized by worth. The sun rises over the terracotta roofs with the indifference of an accountant reviewing ledgers. Light touches the Duomo first, that impossible cathedral crowned with Brunelleschi's dome, a structure so mathematically perfect it seems less built than calculated into existence. The marble facade glows white and green and pink, colors expensive enough to bankrupt lesser cities, arranged in geometric patterns that please God and intimidate creditors in equal measure. The streets wake in stages. First the bakers, their ovens already roaring before dawn, filling the air with the scent of bread that will cost more tomorrow than today because flour is a commodity, and commodities obey only one law, the law of profit. Then the wool merchants, opening their boutiques, the shops that line every major street, their windows displaying fabrics from England, Spain, the Levant, wool transformed through Florentine craftsmanship into wealth soft enough to wear. But it is the banks that truly rule. They are everywhere and nowhere, visible and invisible. The great families, Medici, Pazzi, Albizzi, Strozzi, maintain palazzos that look like fortresses, their ground floors housing not armies, but something more powerful. Currency exchange tables, notary stations, credit contracts written in Latin so dense even priests struggle to pass the clauses. Money flows through Florence like blood through a body, and the banks are the heart, pumping gold to every limb, every digit, every cell of commerce. Lorenzo di Rossi's palazzo sits near the Ponte Vecchio, that ancient bridge lined with jewelers and goldsmiths, where the Arno River carries away the filth of industry, the dyes from the wool shops, the mercury from the gold beaters, the sins of the city diluted but never dissolved. His building is newer than the Medici Palace, smaller, but somehow more intimidating. Where Cosimo de' Medici built with republican restraint, Lorenzo built with banking honesty. This is a fortress and makes no pretense otherwise. The facade is rusticated stone, rough-hewn blocks that look like they were quarried from the same mountain where Prometheus stole fire. The windows are small, barred, defensive. The door is bronze, so heavy it requires 2 servants to open. Above it, carved into the stone, Fides et Fortuna, faith and fortune. The motto is not ironic. Lorenzo believes in both with equal fervor. He believes they are, in fact, the same thing. Inside, the palazzo reveals its true nature. The courtyard is a study in controlled opulence. Corinthian columns support arches decorated with classical motifs, laurel wreaths, dolphins, lions, all rendered in pietra serena, that gray stone Florentines used to frame their ambitions. A fountain burbles at the center, water cascading over marble carved to look like the mouths of saints. The water is blessed weekly, not because Lorenzo is devout, but because blessed water adds value. Everything adds value if marketed correctly. The walls are hung with tapestries from Brussels depicting biblical scenes: Abraham sacrificing Isaac, Moses receiving commandments, Christ driving money changers from the temple. The last is Lorenzo's favorite. He finds it funny. Christ expelled them from his temple, he often tells visitors. He said nothing about ours. The accounting room occupies the entire second floor. This is the true chapel of the palazzo, its sacred space. 20 clerks work at long tables, their pens scratching across parchment with the rhythm of prayer. They record transactions, calculate interest, track debts across 3 continents. The numbers they inscribe are sacraments in their own right. Baptisms of capital, communions of credit, absolutions of debt forgiven at precisely calculated rates. At the head of the room, elevated on a platform like an altar, sits Lorenzo's desk. It is made of walnut, so dark it appears black, inlaid with ivory in patterns that suggest both cathedral floors and astrolabe charts. The desk holds what every merchant in Florence desires: the libro segreto, the secret book where true accounts are kept. Not the ledgers shown to tax collectors or business partners, but the real numbers, the actual flow of money, the genuine measure of power. Lorenzo himself is 43, not tall, not particularly handsome, but possessed of a physical intensity that makes him seem larger than his dimensions. His face is sharp, angular, all economics and no excess. His eyes are the color of bronze coins left too long in the rain, green at the edges, brown at the center, corroded by something that looks like wisdom but might only be experience. His hands are those of a banker, not a warrior, soft, uncalloused, but strong in their way. These are hands that have never held a sword, but have signed documents that destroyed armies. He dresses in black and burgundy, the colors of dried blood and mourning, but the fabrics are the finest available. His doublet is Venetian velvet, his hose Flemish wool, his shoes leather from Cordoba dyed so perfectly black they seem to absorb light. Even his buttons are investments, silver, each one stamped with his personal mark, a rose wrapped in thorns. Rosa in spinnies, a rose among thorns. Beautiful, dangerous, valuable. This morning he reviews accounts with his chief clerk, a thin man named Bernardo, whose spine curves from decades bent over numbers. They discuss the usual matters: a shipment of alum from Volterra, shares in a Flemish trading company, interest rates on loans to minor nobility who will never repay, but whose titles serve as adequate collateral for reputation. Then Bernardo mentions, almost as an afterthought, Antonio de Falieri has opened his bank to depositors. He offers better terms than ours. Lorenzo's pen stops moving. The silence that follows has weight, has texture. The clerks at their tables sense it and work more quietly, their pens whispering rather than scratching. Better terms, Lorenzo repeats. His voice is soft, contemplative. How much better? 0.5% less on loans, 1% more on deposits. Lorenzo nods slowly, as if Bernardo has just explained a complex theological point. Generosity, how Christian of him. Tell me, Bernardo, when has generosity ever built an empire? Never, signore. And yet Falieri believes it will build his. Lorenzo sets down his pen with the care of a surgeon setting down a scalpel. He is young. The young always confuse kindness with strategy. They believe God rewards virtue in this life as well as the next. He smiles. It is not a pleasant expression. We shall teach him otherwise. Bernardo knows better than to ask how. He simply nods and makes a note in his own ledger. A small note, just a name, Antonio de Falieri. But in Florence, names are contracts and contracts are prophecies. That afternoon, Lorenzo visits a church. Not the Duomo, too public. Not Santa Croce, too political. He goes to Santo Spirito, across the Arno, where Brunelleschi's perfect geometry creates a space that feels less like a church and more like a demonstration of mathematical divine right. The columns march in precise intervals. The light falls through windows calculated to illuminate without overwhelming. Even God, it seems, obeys the rules of proportion. Lorenzo does not pray in the main chapel. He descends to the crypt where older altars still stand, where the air smells of earth and centuries. A priest waits there, not the same priest from last night, but another. Lorenzo maintains relationships with 7 churches, 14 priests, 3 monasteries. Diversification is as important in spiritual matters as in financial ones. This priest is younger, eager, already corrupted by the simple fact that he waits here in the dark for a banker rather than tending to his flock above. They do not exchange pleasantries. Lorenzo places a leather purse on the altar. The weight of it, gold has weight, makes a sound like a fist striking stone. Antonio de Falieri, Lorenzo says, the usual prayers, but add something new. Ask God to grant him exactly what he desires most: success, recognition, growth. The priest frowns, confused. Signore, that is a blessing, not a... Yes, Lorenzo interrupts. Exactly. Bless him abundantly. Let his bank grow faster than he can manage. Let clients flock to him faster than he can serve them. Let his success exceed his capacity to sustain it. Let him achieve everything he wants until it crushes him under its own weight. Understanding dawns in the priest's eyes. It is not a pleasant expression. I see. I thought you might. God answers prayers, Father. Sometimes the cruelest thing he can do is give us exactly what we ask for. Lorenzo leaves the purse on the altar. He does not wait to watch the priest take it. He knows he will. They always do. Faith, it turns out, is expensive. Doubt costs nothing. But certainty, the certainty that God is listening and can be convinced to listen harder with adequate financial incentive, that costs exactly 300 florins per month, paid on the 1st of every month, with penalties for late payment calculated at the standard rate. As Lorenzo walks back across the Ponte Vecchio, the sun setting behind him, casting his shadow long across the stones, he considers what he has built. Not just a bank, but a system where salvation and solvency have become indistinguishable. The goldsmiths are closing their shops as he passes. Their windows still glitter with chains, rings, crucifixes, all rendered in precious metal. Christ dies on crosses made of gold. The Virgin wears crowns of silver. Saints intercede through medallions priced by weight. Lorenzo pauses at one shop. In the window, a new piece, a chalice, ornate, expensive, unsuitable for actual use, but perfect for display. He considers purchasing it, then decides against it. He already owns enough chalices. They are filled with coins, and coins, unlike wine, never spoil. The sky above Florence turns the color of old blood. The bells ring for vespers, and Lorenzo de Rossi walks home, a man who has made God into a debtor and heaven into a line item in an accounting book that balances perfectly, ruthlessly, eternally. The prayers begin slowly, like water seeping through stone. At first, no one notices. How could they? A prayer is invisible, inaudible to all but its intended recipient, and God, if he is listening, keeps his own counsel. But effects have causes, even if the chain of causation is wrapped in incense smoke and Latin words that sound like insurance contracts translated into the language of angels. Antonio de Falieri notices first that his luck has changed, not dramatically, nothing so crude as sudden catastrophe. But small things accumulate like dust. A contract delayed by a clerk's illness, a shipment of wool arrived damp and damaged by unexpected rain, a client who promised deposits suddenly deciding to reconsider. Each incident alone means nothing. Together, they form a pattern like words form prayers. Antonio is 31, full of that particular arrogance available only to men young enough to believe merit matters more than connections. He inherited his father's banking house 3 years ago and immediately set about reforming it. Lower interest rates, fair terms, transparent accounting. Revolutionary concepts, all of them, and all of them threatening to men like Lorenzo di Rossi, who have built empires on the opposite principles. His palazzo is smaller than Lorenzo's, but filled with light. Large windows, minimal bars, an architecture that suggests welcome rather than defense. His wife, Caterina, maintains a garden in the courtyard where she grows herbs and roses. She believes beauty is its own justification, an idea so foreign to Florentine banking, it verges on heresy. "You should raise your rates," she tells him one evening as they dine. The food is simple: bread, cheese, wine, because Antonio believes in living modestly, another revolutionary concept. "Everyone says you are too generous." "Everyone says that generosity is foolishness," Antonio replies, tearing bread. "But Christ was generous, and we are taught to imitate Christ." Christ, Caterina observes gently, was not a banker. Perhaps that is the problem. Perhaps banking needs more of Christ and less of mammon. She smiles, but it is sad. She knows Florence better than he does. She was born here, daughter of the Tornabuoni family, raised understanding that money and God speak different languages despite sharing the same churches. "Be careful," she says. "Lorenzo di Rossi is not a forgiving man. I do not seek his forgiveness. I seek to compete fairly. In Florence, there is no difference." That night, Antonio dreams. In the dream, he stands in a church he does not recognize. The altar is covered with coins instead of cloth. The crucifix is made of melted florins, twisted into the shape of agony. A priest approaches, but his face is hidden. He holds out a chalice. "Drink," the priest says. "What is it?" "Everything you desire: success, vindication, victory over your enemies." Antonio reaches for the chalice. The moment his fingers touch it, it burns. He wakes gasping, his palm red as if scalded. Caterina stirs beside him. "What is it?" "Nothing. A dream." But it is not nothing. Over the following weeks, the small disasters accumulate faster. A fire in his warehouse, nothing major, quickly extinguished, but enough to damage 50 bolts of Flemish wool. A rumor spreads that his bank is over-leveraged, which is false, but rumors in finance are more powerful than facts. 3 clients withdraw their deposits, then 7, then 15. Antonio investigates. He reviews his books with obsessive detail. The numbers are sound. His practices are fair. There is no reason for this downturn except circumstance, and circumstance is just another word for bad luck, and bad luck is just another word for the universe's indifference to merit. But then he hears about the prayers. It comes from an unexpected source. A monk who arrives at his palazzo one evening, hooded, nervous, clearly violating some vow by being here. The servants try to turn him away, but Antonio, curious, grants him audience. They meet in Antonio's study. The monk refuses to sit, refuses wine, refuses everything except the chance to speak. "Signore Falieri," he begins, his voice shaking, "I have come to warn you. You have been cursed." Antonio laughs. He cannot help it. Cursed? By whom? A witch? A sorcerer? By the church. The laughter dies. "Explain." The monk hesitates, then confesses everything. How Lorenzo di Rossi pays priests and monks to pray against his competitors. How these prayers are carefully constructed to sound like blessings, but function as curses. How the prayers invoke God's will while actually invoking God's indifference, asking him to grant desires so abundantly they become catastrophes. "It is heresy," the monk whispers, "but it is also effective. Men who are prayed against suffer. Their businesses fail, their reputations crumble, their families sicken. I have seen it 7 times now. 7 men, all competitors of Lorenzo di Rossi, all prayed against, all destroyed within a year. And you participated in this?" The monk's silence is answer enough. Antonio feels something cold settle in his chest, something that might be fear, or might be rage, or might be both frozen together. Why tell me this? Because I can no longer bear it. Because what we do in those chapels, it is not prayer. It is murder by proxy. We kill men's fortunes, their hopes, their futures, and we do it in God's name, while God's enemy pays us. He looks up, and his eyes are desperate. You must protect yourself. How? I do not know. Prayer, perhaps. True prayer, not the corrupted kind. Or, fight fire with fire, find your own priests, pay more than Lorenzo pays, start your own war of faith. Antonio shakes his head. No, I will not corrupt the church to save my bank. The monk stares at him as if he has just confessed to believing the earth is flat. You are a fool. Perhaps, but I would rather be a foolish, honest man than a successful one whose success is purchased with twisted prayers. The monk leaves. Antonio does not stop him. When Caterina comes to the study later, she finds him staring at the account books, his eyes focused somewhere far beyond numbers. What did the monk want? She asks. To save my soul by offering to damn it. That night, he does not dream. But somewhere across Florence, in 7 different churches, 7 different priests kneel before 7 different altars and pray for Antonio de Falieri's destruction. But in the morning, Antonio wakes to news that his largest client, a wool merchant who accounts for 30% of his deposits, has transferred his business to Lorenzo di Rossi's bank. The prayers, it seems, are working. Lorenzo di Rossi does not celebrate Antonio's misfortunes. Celebration implies uncertainty overcome, and Lorenzo is never uncertain. He expected this. He purchased it. The prayers are simply a mechanism, like gears in a clock, like interest compounding, like water flowing downhill. Natural, inevitable, paid for. But he watches. Oh, he watches with the attention of a physician monitoring a patient, a merchant tracking inventory, an artist stepping back from a canvas to judge proportion. Antonio's decline must be measured, controlled, educational. Too fast, and it appears suspicious. Too slow, and others might think Lorenzo's power is waning. The city watches too. Florence is small enough that everyone knows everyone's business, large enough that everyone pretends not to. The gossip moves through the streets like plague. Antonio de Falieri is failing. His deposits shrink, his loans default. His reputation, built so carefully on fairness and transparency, crumbles under the weight of bad luck that looks increasingly like bad judgment. He expanded too quickly, they say in the mercato. He was too generous with terms, they say in the guild halls. He forgot that banking is war by other means, they say in the churches, without irony, without recognizing that this particular war is being fought in those very churches, at those very altars, by those very priests who nod sympathetically while collecting Lorenzo's coins. Antonio knows what is happening. The monk's warning gave him knowledge, but knowledge without power is just another form of torture. He tries to counter it. He visits churches, makes donations, commissions masses for his family's souls. But his prayers are defensive, reactive, the prayers of a man trying to stop a flood with a sieve. Lorenzo's prayers are offensive, proactive, the prayers of a man who has turned faith into artillery. 3 months after the monk's warning, Antonio makes a decision that will seal his fate. He confronts Lorenzo publicly. It happens in the Loggia dei Lanzi, that great covered arcade near the Palazzo Vecchio, where merchants gather to conduct business under the protection of sculptures depicting ancient heroes. Perseus holding Medusa's severed head, Hercules clubbing centaurs, violence rendered beautiful through marble and mythology. Antonio arrives unannounced. Lorenzo is there conducting business, surrounded by clients and sycophants. Antonio walks directly to him, ignoring protocol, ignoring the shocked whispers, ignoring everything except the anger that has been building in him like pressure in a sealed vessel. "Lorenzo di Rossi," he says, his voice carrying across the loggia, "I know what you have done." Lorenzo looks up from his papers. His expression is mild, curious, tinged with the polite confusion of a man interrupted during important work. "Antonio, what a surprise. I have done many things." "You will have to be more specific." The prayers, the priests, the curses disguised as devotion. The loggia falls silent. Even the sculptures seem to lean in, eager for drama. Lorenzo sets down his pen. He stands slowly, giving himself time to think, to calculate, to choose his response with the precision he applies to everything. When he speaks, his voice is warm, concerned, the voice of a friend rather than an enemy. "Antonio, you look unwell. The stress of business, perhaps. I have heard your bank faces difficulties. I am sorry for it. Truly, if there is anything I can do to help, you can stop." "Stop what? Praying? But prayer is the duty of every Christian. Surely you do not suggest I should cease communication with God." "You do not communicate with God. You hire priests to weaponize him." Lorenzo's expression does not change, but something shifts in his eyes, something cold and calculating. "That is a serious accusation. Heretical even. You claim I have corrupted the church? That I pay priests to curse my competitors?" He looks around at the gathered crowd, performing now, turning Antonio's accusation into theater. "Do you have evidence of this?" Antonio hesitates. He has only the monk's word, and the monk, he realizes now, will never testify. To do so would be to confess his own participation. Lorenzo sees the hesitation and strikes. "You see? There is no evidence because there is nothing to find. You are suffering, Antonio. Your bank is failing, and rather than accept responsibility, you invent conspiracies. You blame your problems on prayers. Next, you will blame them on witchcraft or astrology or the phases of the moon." He shakes his head, a performance of sad disappointment. "I respected you once. I thought you might be worthy competition, but this is beneath both of us. I am not mad. No one said you were, but you are desperate. Desperation makes men see patterns in chaos, conspiracies in coincidence. It makes them believe God himself has turned against them when the truth is simpler. They have merely failed." Lorenzo pauses, then delivers his killing blow. "If your bank is failing, Antonio, perhaps it is because God knows what I know, that generosity without wisdom is not virtue. It is foolishness, and God does not reward fools." The crowd murmurs, some sympathetic to Antonio, more impressed by Lorenzo's performance. Antonio feels it slipping away, feels the narrative being rewritten in real time. He came here to expose Lorenzo. Instead, he has exposed himself as unstable, paranoid, a man whose business is failing and who needs someone to blame. He tries again. "You cannot deny. I deny nothing, because there is nothing to deny, but I will pray for you, Antonio, genuinely." Lorenzo returns to his papers, dismissing Antonio as effortlessly as one dismisses a servant. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have actual business to conduct." Antonio stands there, humiliated, defeated, aware that everyone is staring. He wants to rage, to overturn Lorenzo's table, to drag him to a church and force him to confess before the altar. But he does nothing, because what can he do? In Florence, accusation without evidence is slander. Slander against a man as powerful as Lorenzo is suicide. He leaves the loggia. The whispers follow him like wasps. That night, Lorenzo adds a new instruction to his prayers. Not just misfortune for Antonio's bank, but misfortune for Antonio himself. not just business failures but personal ones. Let his wife grow distant. Let his sleep become troubled. Let his health decline. Let him feel physically the weight of divine displeasure. The priests hesitate at this. Praying against a man's business is one thing. Praying against his body, his family, his soul, that verges on true maleficium, true curse work, the kind condemned by church councils and burned in village squares. But Lorenzo pays double, and double is a powerful theological argument. Within a week, Caterina falls ill. Nothing serious, just a fever, but it lingers. Within 2 weeks, Antonio begins waking in the night, his heart racing, his body slick with sweat, haunted by dreams he cannot remember but which leave him feeling contaminated, cursed, chosen by something dark for purposes he cannot comprehend. He tries to rationalize it. Stress, coincidence, the natural consequences of a failing business and public humiliation. But late at night, alone in his study, staring at account books that no longer make sense, he wonders, what if the monk was right? What if prayers can kill? What if God is not just indifferent, but actively for sale to the highest bidder? What if heaven has exchange rates and hell has interest rates, and the entire cosmos is just another ledger balanced by men like Lorenzo di Rossi? The thought is unbearable. But so is the alternative, that he is simply failing through his own inadequacy, that there is no conspiracy, no supernatural explanation, just his own incompetence dressed up in the costume of divine persecution. He does not know which possibility frightens him more. In the Duomo, during Mass, he prays. But his prayers feel hollow, like words spoken into a void. He prays for strength, for guidance, for some sign that he is not alone. The sign comes 3 days later. This one is older, harder, with eyes that have seen too much and forgiven too little. He arrives at night, as the first monk did, but he does not ask for privacy. He states his business in the entrance hall, loud enough for servants to hear. I am Brother Tommaso of San Marco. I have been sent by my prior with a message. Lorenzo di Rossi has offered our monastery a significant donation. In exchange, we are to pray for the soul of Antonio de Falieri. He pauses. The phrasing of the prayers suggests your soul is in mortal danger and requires immediate divine intervention. Antonio understands immediately. It is the final move, not just prayers against his business or health, but prayers that publicly announce him as spiritually compromised. If a respected monastery is praying for his soul's salvation, it implies his soul needs saving. The implication will spread faster than any rumor. He will be marked not just as a failing banker, but as a man who has lost God's favor. What is the donation? Antonio asks quietly. 5,000 florins. It is an enormous sum, more than most monasteries see in a decade. Brother Tommaso watches Antonio's face, waiting for reaction. And you came to tell me this because I want you to offer more. There it is, the corruption complete. Even the monks who come to warn him are really coming to auction him to see if he will outbid his enemy for God's attention. Antonio laughs. It is not a happy sound. No, I will not buy God's favor. If my soul is in danger, then I will save it through faith and works, not through donations extracted under threat. If the monastery of San Marco wishes to pray for me, they may do so freely. If they wish to be paid for those prayers, let Lorenzo pay them, but I will not participate in this auction. Brother Tommaso's expression hardens. You are a fool. Yes, Antonio agrees. I have been told that before. It seems to be my defining characteristic. But I would rather be a fool in God's eyes than a success in Lorenzo's accounting. And Antonio, standing alone in his entrance hall, realizes he has just signed his own death warrant. Not literal death, Lorenzo is too clever for murder. But death of reputation, of business, of everything he built. He thinks of his father, Who built this bank on integrity? He thinks of Caterina, ill upstairs, fever bright and fragile, and he decides, if he is going to fail, he will fail honestly. The city will not understand it. History will not record it. God, if he exists and cares, may not even notice it. But Antonio will know. And sometimes in the end, that is all a man has. The private knowledge of his own choices, the silent accounting of his own soul. That night, he does not dream. He does not wake in terror. He sleeps peacefully for the first time in months. Above Florence, the stars wheel in their ancient patterns. The Arno flows. The churches stand silent. And in those churches, priests kneel and pray and collect their coins. The machine grinds on. The monastery of Sant'Angelo sits on a hillside outside Florence's walls, surrounded by olive groves and cypress trees that stand like dark sentinels against the Tuscan sky. It is old, this place. Older than the Medici, older than the banking families, older than Florence itself. The stones remember Lombards, remember Romans, remember perhaps even earlier peoples who worshipped gods whose names have been forgotten, but whose presence still lingers in the shadows between the columns. The monks who live here have taken vows of poverty, chastity, obedience. They wear rough brown habits, sleep on straw mattresses, eat bread and vegetables grown in their own gardens. They pray 7 times a day, rising even before dawn for matins, their voices joining in Gregorian chant that has remained unchanged for centuries. They are holy men, or they were. In the scriptorium, where monks once copied manuscripts and illuminated gospels with gold leaf and devotion, a different kind of accounting now takes place. Brother Domenico, the monastery's treasurer, sits at a desk that once held sacred texts. Now it holds ledgers, not spiritual records, but financial ones. He counts coins, gold florins, silver grossi, small copper denarii. They clink and whisper as he sorts them into piles, divides them according to a system only he understands. Beside the coins sits a list of names, all competitors of Lorenzo di Rossi, all men who have been prayed against, all clients in the monastery's new, unspoken business. Brother Domenico is 53. His face is thin, ascetic, the face of a man who has spent decades in prayer and fasting. But his hands are steady as he counts money, and his eyes have the focus of a banker reviewing accounts. He has rationalized what he does. It is easy once you begin. The monastery needs funds. The roof leaks. The walls crumble. The library requires new manuscripts. God provides, yes, but God provides through men. And if Lorenzo di Rossi wishes to be the instrument of God's provision, who is Brother Domenico to refuse? The door opens. Brother Luca enters, younger, 30 perhaps, still struggling with the weight of what they have become. He carries another purse. From Signore di Rossi, he says quietly, setting it on the desk, for prayers regarding Antonio de Falieri. He requests we intensify our devotions. Brother Domenico opens the purse. More gold, always more gold. He counts it with the practiced efficiency of a man who has done this many times. 300 florins. He is generous. He is thorough. Brother Luca hesitates. Domenico, I must confess something. I am troubled. We are all troubled, brother. The soul is meant to be troubled. It keeps us humble. This is different. What we do here, these prayers, are they prayers or something else? Brother Domenico sets down the coins. He has had this conversation before with Brother Luca and with others. The monastery has 20 monks. 15 participate in the prayer business. 5 refuse. Those 5 are isolated, given the hardest labor, the coldest cells. They will convert eventually, or leave. Everyone converts or leaves. We pray, Brother Domenico says patiently. We pray for God's will to be done. If Antonio de Falieri suffers, it is because God wills it. We merely direct God's attention. Lorenzo pays us to direct that attention. but we pray for his destruction. We pray for God's justice. If God chooses to interpret justice as destruction, that is God's decision, not ours. Brother Luca sits down heavily. I cannot sleep. I dream of the men we have prayed against. 7 men in 3 years. All ruined, all destroyed, and we profited from each destruction. The monastery profited. We took vows of poverty. We own nothing personally. The gold goes to God's work. Does it, or does it go to our comfort? Have you noticed, Domenico, that since we began accepting Lorenzo's payments, our meals have improved? Our wine is better. Our habits are finer cloth. We have built a new dormitory, expanded the library, commissioned frescoes. We live like princes in the costume of paupers. Brother Domenico's face hardens. You question how we spend God's money? I question if it is God's money or blood money dressed in God's name. The silence that follows is dangerous. Brother Domenico stands slowly, walks to the window. Outside, monks work in the gardens, tend the olive trees, go about the business of holy poverty while living in increasingly unholy prosperity. Let me tell you something, Luca, he says finally. When I joined this monastery 40 years ago, we were starving. We ate grass soup. We burned furniture for heat. Monks died of cold while Florence grew rich in gold. I prayed. I begged God to provide. He turns, his eyes fierce. And when Lorenzo de Rossi offered gold for prayers, I saw it as God finally answering. Or Lorenzo is the devil, and we have made a pact. Brother Domenico laughs, but there is no humor in it. The devil does not need pacts. He already owns this world. We are simply collecting rent. Brother Luca stands. I cannot do this anymore. Then leave. Join the 5 who refuse. Work in the fields. Pray alone. See how long your conscience sustains you when your stomach is empty and your bones ache with cold. You would cast me out. I would let you choose, as we all chose. As every man chooses between principle and survival, between heaven and earth, between the next world and this one. Brother Domenico returns to his desk, to his coins. I have chosen this world. It is the only one I can touch, taste, inhabit. If God disapproves, he can strike me dead. Until then, I will accept his silence as permission. Brother Luca leaves. He does not join the 5 who refuse. Not yet, but the seed is planted. That night, the monks gather for compline, the final prayer service before sleep. They sing the ancient words, the words that have been sung in this place for 800 years. But now those words taste different. Now they carry weight, carry price, carry the memory of what they have become. After compline, after the other monks have retired, 7 men remain in the chapel. These are Lorenzo's priests, his prayer warriors, his spiritual mercenaries. They gather around the altar where a candle burns and a new list waits. Names of men to be prayed against, contracts to be fulfilled, curses to be laundered through liturgy. Brother Domenico leads the ritual. It has become a ritual, formalized over time, refined through repetition. He reads the name, Antonio de Falieri. Then he distributes the prayer assignments. Each monk will pray at different times, in different ways, approaching God from different angles. Diversification, even in prayer, diversification. Remember, Brother Domenico instructs, we do not curse, we never curse. We pray for God's will, for his justice, for the revelation of truth. If Antonio de Falieri suffers, it is because God sees what we see. That his pride requires humbling, his ambition requires limiting, his challenge to the natural order requires correction. The monks nod. They have heard this before. They believe it more or less, or have convinced themselves they believe it, which amounts to the same thing. They pray. 7 voices in the darkness, speaking words that sound holy but function as weapons. The chapel absorbs their prayers the way stone absorbs water, slowly, completely, irreversibly. The walls have heard so many prayers now, both genuine and corrupted, that they can no longer distinguish between them. Perhaps God cannot either. After the prayers, they divide the payment. Not equally, Brother Domenico takes the largest share, as befits his position and his spiritual labor in organizing these services. The others receive according to rank and participation. Even in corruption there is hierarchy. Brother Luca watches from the shadows of the cloister. He has not joined the prayer circle, but he has not left either. He stands in the liminal space between participation and refusal, between damnation and salvation, watching coins change hands in the house of God. He thinks of Scripture, Jesus driving the money changers from the temple. But these are not money changers. These are the priests themselves, selling prayers like merchants sell wool. There is no one to drive them out. They own the temple. A sound behind him. He turns. Brother Tommaso, the eldest monk, the one who visited Antonio de Falieri, stands there. His face is grim. "You see it now," Tommaso says. "Not a question. I see it. And what will you do?" "I do not know. What can I do? They are the majority. Domenico controls the monastery. If I speak out, I am expelled." "Yes. You refused from the beginning. How do you bear it? How do you live here knowing what happens in that chapel?" Tommaso is silent for a long time. When he speaks, his voice is heavy with years. "I bear it because I remember what we were. I bear it because someone must remember. The 5 of us who refuse, we are the memory. When this is over, when God finally acts or men finally rebel, someone must be able to say, not all of us fell. Some remained faithful. But you do nothing to stop it." "Oh, what would you have me do? Burn the monastery? Kill Domenico? Report them to the bishop?" He laughs bitterly. The bishop knows. Everyone knows. Florence runs on this system. The church and the banks have intertwined so completely you cannot separate them without destroying both. We are not separate institutions. We are one body with 2 faces, one that prays and one that profits, and both faces smile at each other in mutual satisfaction. Then it is hopeless. Perhaps. Or perhaps God is waiting, testing us, seeing how far we will go before we remember who we are meant to be. Tommaso places a hand on Luca's shoulder. "You asked what you can do. Here is what. Keep your soul. Do not pray for money. Do not accept their coins. Work in silence, pray in truth, and wait. Sometimes waiting is the only resistance possible." Luca nods slowly. "And if God never acts, if Lorenzo wins, if this becomes the permanent state of things, then at least we will know what we are. At least we will have named it clearly. We will not be able to claim ignorance or good intentions. We will know that we built hell and called it heaven, that we sold God and called it service." Tommaso's voice drops to a whisper. And perhaps that clarity, that terrible clarity, will be its own form of judgment. They stand together in the darkness of the cloister, 2 monks among 20, refusing a corruption that feels inevitable as sunrise. In the chapel, the candle burns. The coins sit on the altar, gleaming like a second smaller sun. And Lorenzo di Rossi, sleeping in his palazzo in Florence, dreams peacefully, secure in the knowledge that he has purchased not just prayers, but an entire monastery. Not just blessings, but the very mechanism of divine will. The next morning, Brother Domenico receives another message from Lorenzo. Not a request for prayers. Something different. Something that makes even his corrupted heart pause. Lorenzo wishes to visit the monastery. He wishes to make a donation in person, a large donation, 5,000 florins. In exchange for a permanent arrangement, a monthly retainer, a formal contract, the prayers regularized and guaranteed. He wants to turn their conspiracy into a business. Brother Domenico reads the message 3 times. He thinks of refusing. For a moment, just a moment, He feels the weight of what he has become, the enormity of the sin. To formalize it, to make it official, to sign a contract that explicitly trades prayers for gold, that is to cross a line from which there is no return. But he thinks of the monastery, the leaking roof now repaired, the full bellies, the warm cells, the library expanding. The respect they now command in Florence, the way merchants and nobles defer to them, seek their counsel, their intercession. He thinks of the alternative, returning to poverty, to cold, to irrelevance. He writes his reply accepting Lorenzo's offer. The contract will be signed in 1 week. Lorenzo will visit. The prayers will be formalized. The conspiracy will become legitimate business, sanctified by agreement, normalized by regularity. And God, if he watches, if he cares, if he exists at all beyond the constructions of desperate men, will have his answer to what price his servants place on their service. In the gardens, Brother Luca tends vegetables. His hands work the soil, pull weeds, do honest labor while his mind struggles with dishonest questions. He does not yet know about the contract. When he learns, he will have to choose finally, completely, whether to stay or go, whether to accept or resist. But for now, he works. The sun is warm, the earth is real, the vegetables grow according to natural law, indifferent to prayer, responsive only to water and light and time. He finds comfort in this. In a world where everything has become transaction, the garden remains gift. And that is enough, for now. Lorenzo de Rossi visits Sant'Angelo Monastery on a Tuesday morning in late October, when the air smells of wood smoke and turned earth, and the particular melancholy that autumn brings to Tuscany. He travels with minimal escort, just 2 guards and a clerk who carries the contract in a leather case stamped with Lorenzo's seal. He does not want attention. This business is best conducted quietly, like all important business in Florence. The ride takes 2 hours. Lorenzo uses the time to think, to calculate, to review the architecture of what he has built. 7 competitors destroyed over 3 years. Antonio de Falieri on the verge of complete ruin. His own bank now dominant, unchallengeable, so entrenched in Florence's economic structure that opposing him would be like opposing gravity or time. He has won. This visit to the monastery is simply formalization, the paperwork that follows victory. The prayers will continue on a permanent basis. He will have spiritual artillery at his command indefinitely. God, or the simulation of God, or the marketplace that trades in God's name, will be his permanent ally. The monastery appears through the olive groves like a vision from an earlier, simpler age. Stone buildings clustered around a courtyard, a bell tower reaching toward heaven with the confidence of centuries. It looks peaceful, holy, untouched by the corruptions of Florence. Lorenzo smiles. Appearances, as always, deceive. Brother Domenico greets him at the gate. They embrace like brothers, like partners, like conspirators who have moved beyond the need for pretense. There is no shame in either man's face. They have made their choices and lived with consequences that feel like rewards. Welcome, Signore di Rossi. The monastery is honored by your presence. The honor is mine, brother. Your prayers have been remarkably effective. They walk together through the cloister. Lorenzo observes everything with a banker's eye. The new roof, the expanded library, the well-fed monks. His investments, he notes with satisfaction, have been well managed. In the chapter house, the contract awaits. It is written on vellum in elegant script, witnessed by a notary who has been paid for discretion. The language is careful, encoded, never stating explicitly what is being purchased, but making it clear enough to those who know how to read between the lines. 5,000 florins, Lorenzo says, setting a chest on the table, and 300 florins monthly thereafter, in exchange for regular devotions on behalf of myself and my interests. God's work requires support. Brother Domenico agrees. "We are grateful for your generosity." They sign. The notary witnesses. The contract is sealed with wax and ribbons. It is done. The conspiracy has become legitimate. Hell has drafted its articles of incorporation. As they drink wine afterward, good wine, Vernaccia from San Gimignano, far too expensive for monks who have vowed poverty, Lorenzo asks a question that has been troubling him. "Tell me, Brother Domenico, do you believe they work? The prayers?" Domenico considers. "I believe results follow them. Whether the prayers cause the results or the results would have occurred regardless, that is theology beyond my understanding." A careful answer. "I am a careful man, as are you, Signore. You do not trust to prayer alone. You are thorough in all things: legal pressure, market manipulation, strategic alliance. The prayers are simply another tool." "Yes," Lorenzo agrees, "but an important tool. There is something about invoking God against your enemies. It provides," he searches for the word, "legitimacy. When Antonio de Falieri suffers, people do not merely see a business failure. They see divine judgment. They wonder what sin he committed to deserve such displeasure. His suffering becomes evidence of guilt. It is remarkably efficient." "Faith has always been efficient," Domenico observes. "Why else would it have survived so long?" They drink in silence, two men who have turned religion into commodity and found it surprisingly easy. Outside, monks work and pray and go about the business of holy life, mostly unaware that their monastery has become a subsidiary of a banking empire. But not all are unaware. Brother Luca has been listening. Standing in the corridor outside the chapter house, pressed against stone, he has heard everything. The contract, the money, the casual way they discuss prayers as tools, God as investment, faith as market mechanism. Something breaks in him, or perhaps something clarifies. The thing he has been avoiding for months, the recognition of what they have become, crashes over him with the force of revelation. This is damnation. This is precisely exactly what damnation looks like. Not flames and devils, but comfortable men drinking expensive wine in a monastery paid for by spiritual extortion. He walks to the chapel. His hands shake, his mind races. He prays, genuinely prays for perhaps the first time in months, and he asks God what he should do. God does not answer. Or perhaps God's answer is the silence, the weight of choice pressing down until Luca must decide for himself what justice requires. He decides. That night, after Compline, after Lorenzo has departed back to Florence, after the monastery settles into sleep, Brother Luca goes to Brother Domenico's cell. "We must stop," he says without preamble. "What we do is heresy. It must stop now." Domenico looks up from his accounts. Even in his private cell, he works with numbers. "You are overwrought, brother. Sleep. Tomorrow you will think more clearly." "I think clearly now, clearer than I have in months. We have sold God. We have made the church into a weapon for hire. We have destroyed men through prayer and profited from their destruction. This is sin. This is damnation. This is survival. No, this is suicide of the soul. And I will not participate any longer." Domenico stands. His face is hard, administrative. "You threaten us? I promise you. Tomorrow I go to the bishop. I tell him everything. Let him decide if this contract stands. The bishop knows. Then I go to Rome, to the Pope. Someone must be told. Someone must care." Domenico studies him. Calculations flicker behind his eyes. "You would destroy the monastery to save your conscience?" "I would save the monastery by destroying this corruption." Idealist, fool, child. Domenico shakes his head. "You do not understand how the world works. The bishop knows. The Pope knows. Rome is built on contracts like ours. The entire church runs on such arrangements. You will accomplish nothing except your own expulsion and possibly your death. Then I die. But I die having refused." Domenico sits back down. When he speaks, his voice is tired, almost kind. Luca, brother, I am not a monster. I am a man who was given an impossible choice: watch the monastery crumble or accept Lorenzo's offer. I chose survival. Every day I choose survival, and I sleep well because I know that survival is not sin, it is wisdom. It is cowardice dressed as wisdom. Then I am a coward, and you are a martyr. And neither of us will change the system because the system is larger than both of us, larger than this monastery, larger than Florence, larger than anything except God himself. And God, Domenico spreads his hands. God has been remarkably silent on the matter. Luca turns to leave. Wait, Domenico calls. One more thing. If you go to the authorities, if you expose us, know that you will not hurt only me. You will hurt every monk here. This monastery will be investigated, possibly disbanded. The brothers who relied on our contracts for survival will return to poverty. You will punish the innocent along with the guilty. Can your conscience bear that weight? Luca stops. He had not considered this, or rather he had considered it and dismissed it. But now Domenico has made it real, immediate, unavoidable. I must follow truth wherever it leads. Even if it leads to suffering? Yes. Then you are more dangerous than Lorenzo di Rossi. He at least is honest about trading suffering for profit. You trade suffering for principle and call it virtue. The words strike deep. Luca leaves without responding, returns to his cell, spends the night in prayer and anguish. By morning, he has decided. He will go to the bishop, but he never gets the chance. That same night, the night Luca confronts Domenico, Lorenzo di Rossi is sleeping in his palazzo when something goes wrong. He dreams. In the dream, he stands in a church. The altar is covered with contracts, thousands of them, all signed in his name. A figure approaches, hooded, faceless, carrying a scale. The figure places Lorenzo's soul on one side of the scale and his contracts on the other. The contracts weigh more. The figure speaks with a voice like coins falling on stone. You traded salvation for solvency. You made God into a debtor. You turned prayers into weapons. You won everything except what matters. Lorenzo tries to speak, to argue, to negotiate, but his mouth fills with gold coins. They pour from his lips, choking him until he drowns in his own wealth. He wakes, gasping. His heart hammers, his chest aches. He feels as if something has reached inside him and squeezed. He tries to stand. The room spins. He falls. His servants find him at dawn, collapsed beside his bed, alive but diminished. A physician is summoned. The diagnosis is vague, an imbalance of humors, stress, overwork. But Lorenzo knows. Something has broken inside him, something that all the prayers he purchased cannot fix. For 3 days he lies in bed, hovering between life and death. His mind wanders. He sees faces. Antonio de Falieri, the 7 men he destroyed, the priests he corrupted. They stand around his bed like witnesses at a trial. They say nothing. Their presence is accusation enough. On the 4th day, he recovers enough to speak. He summons brother Domenico. The contract, Lorenzo whispers, burn it. Signore, the prayers, stop them, all of them. But I said, stop. Lorenzo's voice gains strength. I felt it, Domenico. I felt the weight of what we did. It is real. The prayers, the curses, the damnation, it is all real. And it is killing me. Brother Domenico studies him carefully. Is this genuine repentance or merely fear? Does it matter? What of the money already paid? Keep it, spend it. I do not care. Just stop the prayers. After Domenico leaves, Lorenzo lies in darkness and considers what he has built. An empire of finance, yes. But at what cost? He tried to make God into an employee, heaven into a subsidiary, salvation into a line item in an accounting book. And God, or something, responded. In his palazzo, surrounded by wealth that feels suddenly like accusation, Lorenzo di Rossi begins to understand that some debts cannot be calculated in florins. 3 weeks pass. Lorenzo recovers physically, but remains changed, hollowed out, as if his illness burned away something essential and left only the shell. He walks through his palazzo like a ghost, haunting his own life. The accounting room, once the center of his existence, now feels like a mausoleum where numbers lie entombed in ledgers. His clerks work with the same diligence, but Lorenzo can barely bring himself to review their figures. He has stopped the prayers at Sant'Angelo. Brother Domenico, reading the fear in Lorenzo's eyes, complied without argument. The contract was burned. The monthly payments ceased. The 7 monks who prayed for money found themselves suddenly unemployed in their primary vocation. But Lorenzo knows it is not enough. You cannot unspeak words spoken before God. You cannot unweave curses woven into the fabric of other men's lives. The damage is done, permanent, recorded in whatever ledger heaven keeps. Antonio de Falieri remains ruined. His bank has closed, his clients scattered, his reputation destroyed. The man himself has retreated into his palazzo, emerging only for mass, moving through Florence like a penitent seeking absolution for sins he never committed. Lorenzo should feel victorious. Instead, he feels haunted. The faces appear when he closes his eyes. Not just Antonio, but the others. 7 men over 3 years. Some he remembers clearly. Their names, their faces, the specific prayers he commissioned against them. Others have blurred together, become generic, interchangeable victims of his spiritual warfare. But they are not interchangeable to God. If God exists, if God keeps accounts, if God cares about the difference between legitimate business and spiritual murder. These questions torment Lorenzo. He who once slept peacefully now wakes at odd hours, his heart racing, his mind spinning through theological problems that have no financial solutions. Can you repent of prayers? Can you compensate victims of curses? What is the exchange rate between gold and grace? His wife Lucrezia watches him deteriorate with increasing concern. They have been married 17 years, successful, comfortable, founded on mutual understanding and carefully maintained boundaries, until now. One evening she finally asks, "Lorenzo, what have you done?" He looks at her across the room they have shared for nearly 2 decades, and realizes he cannot answer without destroying everything between them. "Business," he says finally, "business does not haunt men the way you are haunted. All business haunts its practitioners if they think about it too much. Profit requires casualties. Success requires failures. My success required other men's ruin. That is economics. That is not what troubles you. You have ruined men before and slept soundly. This is different." She is right, of course. She has always been perceptive, always seen more than he credited her with seeing. He considers lying, dismissing her concern, retreating behind the wall of masculine financial mysteries that husbands use to keep wives at safe distance. Instead, he tells her everything. The prayers, the priests, the monastery, the contract, the 7 men destroyed through spiritual extortion. Antonio de Falieri prayed against until his life collapsed. The moment of his illness, when he genuinely felt, the weight of divine displeasure pressing on his chest like a stone. When he finishes, Lucrezia is silent for a long time. Her face shows nothing, not shock, not horror, not judgment, just careful thought, the expression of a woman calculating a problem's dimensions before attempting solution. "You must confess," she says finally. "I have confessed." Brother Domenico, not to Domenico, He was your accomplice. You must confess to a priest who was not part of it. A real confession. Full, detailed, holding nothing back. What good will that do? I do not know. But you are dying, Lorenzo. Not in body perhaps, but in soul. I can see it. You are being consumed from within by something that money cannot remedy. If you believe the prayers worked, if you believe God was listening when those monks spoke your name, then you must believe God will listen when you speak your own. And if I confess, and nothing changes, then at least you will have told the truth. The universe will know what you did. That is worth something, even if it purchases nothing. Lorenzo considers this. Confession without guaranteed results. Investment without assured returns. It goes against every instinct he has developed over 43 years. But what choice remains? The next day, he goes to the Duomo. Not to his usual church, not to any priest who might recognize him. He goes to Florence's greatest cathedral, that vast space where marble and geometry conspire to make men feel appropriately small, and he finds a priest he has never met. A young Dominican with kind eyes and hands that tremble slightly when Lorenzo approaches. "Father, I need to confess." They enter the confessional, that narrow wooden booth where secrets are traded for absolution. Lorenzo kneels. The wood is hard against his knees. The air smells of old wood and older sins. He begins, "I have destroyed 7 men through prayer." The priest is silent, processing this strange opening. "You cursed them." "No. Worse. I paid priests to pray against them. Real prayers, liturgically correct, theologically sound, but with intention twisted. Prayers designed to invoke God's judgment, to direct his attention to my enemy's flaws, to ask him to give them exactly what they desired until it crushed them. The words pour out. Lorenzo, who has built his life on controlled speech, on calculated disclosure, finds himself unable to stop. He confesses everything, the amounts paid, the names of the victims, the monasteries involved, the contracts signed and burned. He confesses not just the actions, but the theology behind them, the rationalization that God was merchandise, that heaven operated on market principles, that faith was simply another resource to be exploited. When he finishes, the silence on the other side of the screen is profound. Finally, the priest speaks. His voice is young but not naive, troubled but not shocked. "What you describe, there is precedent for it. Church history records many instances of prayers weaponized. But that does not make it acceptable. You have not committed one sin but several. Pride, certainly. Greed, wrath against your competitors, and worse, you have attempted to make God your accomplice. You have tried to turn the divine into your employee. I know. Do you? Do you understand that repentance is not merely regret? You must make restitution, the men you destroyed. Antonio de Falieri is beyond restitution. His bank is closed, his reputation ruined, his spirit broken. What can I give him? Money? It would insult him. Position? He would refuse. Then you must find another way, but you must try. And the others? The 7 men? Some have left Florence. Some have died. How do I make restitution to ghosts? That, the priest says quietly, is between you and God. I can absolve your sins, but I cannot erase their consequences. The words spoken cannot be unspoken. The prayers prayed cannot be unprayed. You will carry this weight for the rest of your life. Absolution does not mean amnesia. Then what good is absolution? It means God forgives you. Whether you forgive yourself is your burden. The priest grants absolution, the formal words, the ritual gesture. Lorenzo receives it mechanically, without the relief he expected. He walks through the Duomo afterward, that vast space where Brunelleschi's dome seems to pull heaven down to earth. The frescoes depict judgment, paradise, damnation. Dante's cosmology rendered in paint and gold. Lorenzo stops before the image of hell. It is traditional: devils, flames, sinners sorted by category and punishment. But one detail catches his attention: a group of souls clutching coins, their hands melted to the metal, unable to let go even as it burns them. The usurers, the bankers, the men who made money their god. He stares at this image for a long time, until a verger comes to tell him the cathedral is closing for the evening. Even then he hesitates, unwilling to leave, as if remaining here might offer protection, might defer the moment when he must step back into the world he has corrupted. But cathedrals close. Priests go home. Even God, it seems, keeps business hours. Lorenzo returns to his palazzo as night falls over Florence. The streets are dark, lit only by occasional torches, windows glowing amber where families gather for evening meals, for prayer, for the simple rituals that make life bearable. He passes Antonio de Falieri's palazzo. The windows are dark. The building looks abandoned, though Lorenzo knows Antonio still lives there, hiding from the city that watched his destruction. On impulse, Lorenzo stops. He stands before the door, that bronze door much like his own, and he considers knocking. What would he say? "I destroyed you, forgive me. Here is gold to compensate for the prayers I brought against you. I confessed and feel no better, so perhaps you could help me feel worse, which might help somehow." All of it sounds absurd, but as he stands there, the door opens. Antonio appears, as if summoned by Lorenzo's presence. They stare at each other. Two bankers, two enemies, two men whose lives have been woven together through weaponized prayer. "Signore Di Rossi," Antonio says finally. His voice is flat, exhausted, the voice of a man who has stopped being surprised by anything. "Signore de Falieri, Lorenzo searches for words and finds none adequate. "I came to apologize. For destroying me." "Yes." Antonio laughs. It is not a happy sound. "Do you expect me to forgive you?" "No, I expect nothing. But I owed you the words. I paid priests to pray against you. I used God as a weapon. I destroyed your business, your reputation, your peace. I am sorry." "Sorry." Antonio tests the word like a coin of uncertain value. "Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you feel guilty about it?" "Both. Neither. I do not know. I only know that I cannot undo it, and I must at least acknowledge it." They stand in silence. The night is cold. Somewhere a dog barks. A child cries. Life continues around them, indifferent to their moral crisis. "Come in," Antonio says finally. Inside, the palazzo is dark, poorly heated. Servants have been dismissed, furniture sold. The accounting room is empty, desks gone, ledgers burned or given away. Only the chapel remains unchanged, a small private altar where Antonio's family has prayed for generations. They sit in this chapel. Antonio lights 2 candles. The light flickers across their faces, revealing exhaustion, age, the cost of their conflict. "You know what the strangest part is?" Antonio says. "I do not even hate you." "I should. You destroyed everything I built. But I cannot summon the energy for hatred. I am simply tired. As am I. But you won. Your bank prospers. Mine is dust. How can the victor be tired?" Lorenzo considers how to explain. "Because I won through methods that corrupted me. Because victory came at the cost of my soul." "So you came here for absolution you could not get from the priest?" "Perhaps. Or perhaps I came to see if the man I destroyed was more real than the abstraction I prayed against. I convinced myself you were just a competitor, just an obstacle, just a name on a list. But you are not. You are a man with a wife who loves you, with principles you refuse to compromise, with an integrity I cannot fathom and therefore destroyed because it threatened me." Antonio nods slowly. "You understand that I cannot forgive you?" "I understand. But I can tell you this, what you did was evil, not merely wrong, but evil. You corrupted the church, profited from spiritual extortion, and destroyed innocent men to increase your wealth. That is evil. Naming it clearly might help you more than absolution. And yet you will not curse me in return. No, because then I become you. The cycle continues. Evil begets evil begets evil, until the world is nothing but men using God to destroy each other. Antonio's voice hardens. So I will not curse you, Lorenzo de Rossi, but I will not forgive you either. You will live with what you did. That is more punishment than any curse I could devise. Lorenzo stands. There is nothing more to say. He has confessed, apologized, been refused forgiveness. The accounting is complete. The ledger shows a balance he cannot rectify. As he reaches the door, Antonio calls after him. One more thing. The prayers. Did they work? Lorenzo turns. I believe they did. Then God listened. God heard you ask for my destruction, and God granted it. Antonio's eyes glitter in the candlelight. Tell me, does that comfort you? Does it help to know that when you asked God to destroy me, he agreed? Lorenzo has no answer. He leaves, stepping into the cold Florence night, and realizes that Antonio has given him what he needed, not forgiveness, but clarity. Understanding that some sins cannot be absolved, some debts cannot be repaid. You can only carry them. He walks home through empty streets. Above, stars wheel in their ancient patterns. Florence sleeps around him, that city of beauty and banking, where God and gold have been partners so long no one remembers which employed which. And Lorenzo de Rossi finally understands what he purchased. Not power, but knowledge of his own capacity for evil. 10 years pass. Time does what time does, continues, indifferent to drama, healing some wounds while deepening others, sorting the living from the dead with the same mechanical precision as a banker sorts coins. Lorenzo de Rossi dies in 1477, aged 53. His death is unremarkable. A fever, a decline, a final breath witnessed by priests who pray dutifully but without the weaponized intention of his own purchased prayers. He is buried with full honors, his tomb in Santa Croce modest by Medici standards, but impressive enough to announce that he mattered, that he was someone, that his life registered in Florence's economy of memory. His bank survives him. His sons take over, conduct business with less innovation but equal ruthlessness. They do not pray against competitors, having learned from their father's example that some weapons are too dangerous to wield. But they find other methods, other leverage. Banking adapts. It always does. Antonio de Falieri outlives Lorenzo by 3 years. He never reopens his bank. He lives quietly with Caterina in their diminished palazzo, tending the garden, attending mass daily, existing in that space between ruin and resignation. When he dies, the funeral is small. The city has already forgotten him, or remembers him only as a cautionary tale. The man who competed with Lorenzo de Rossi and lost. But the story does not end with their deaths. Stories in Florence never end. They become legends, become warnings, become the scaffolding on which new stories build. In the monastery of Sant'Angelo, Brother Domenico dies 5 years after Lorenzo. His death is slow, painful, marked by dreams he will not discuss and screams he cannot contain. The other monks whisper about it, about how he called out names in his sleep, about how he begged forgiveness from people who were not present, about how he died clutching coins that were not real. Brother Luca, who stayed in the monastery despite everything, takes over as treasurer. He finds Domenico's private records, detailed accounts of every prayer sold, every florin earned, every man destroyed. The records are meticulous, obsessive. The accounting of a man who could not stop calculating even when the calculations condemned him. Luca burns the records, not to hide them, but to release them. Let the ashes scatter, let the crimes dissolve into air. Let Florence move forward without this particular evidence of its corruption. But some memories persist, despite burning. Merchants begin to notice a pattern. Businesses that occupy Lorenzo's old palazzo fail. Not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily, inevitably, as if the building itself carries curse. 3 banks attempt to use the space. All 3 close within 2 years. A cloth merchant tries next, then a grain broker, then a goldsmith. All fail. The palazzo becomes known as unlucky, cursed, touched by something that does not want to be touched. Eventually it sits empty, its windows dark, its bronze door sealed, its courtyard silent. People say, though no one can confirm, that you can hear sounds from inside. Not footsteps or voices, but the sound of coins falling, ledgers turning, prayers being whispered. The sounds of accounting that never ends, calculation that continues past death, business conducted between floors of existence that should not communicate. The story spreads beyond Florence. It becomes parable, becomes warning, becomes the kind of legend that merchants tell apprentices to teach them about greed and its consequences. But the legend is imprecise. It says Lorenzo was punished for corruption, for making God into commodity. It does not say, cannot say, the more complex truth, that Lorenzo was punished not for breaking rules but for following them too well, for taking the logic of Renaissance Florence to its inevitable conclusion. If God and money are partners in the church, why not in banking? If indulgences can be purchased, why not God's attention? If the church sells salvation, why not judgments? Lorenzo simply applied market principles to spiritual matters. His sin was not innovation but honesty. He made explicit what everyone kept implicit. And Florence could not forgive that honesty. Not because it was wrong, but because it revealed too much about how the entire system worked. The monastery of Sant'Angelo continues. The scandal is never made public. The church investigates quietly and finds corruption, but not enough corruption to warrant dramatic action. Some monks are transferred. Some retire. Life continues because life always continues, because institutions survive individual sins, because the church has endured far worse and will endure far worse again. But the 7 monks who prayed for money never pray the same way again. Something broke in them. They continue in their vocations, but their voices during liturgy sound hollow, performative, as if they are speaking words they no longer believe to a God they no longer trust exists. Brother Luca becomes prior eventually. He leads the monastery with quiet integrity, refusing all partnerships with bankers, rejecting all offers to sell prayers. The monastery becomes poor again, genuinely poor, sleeping on straw, eating thin soup, shivering through winter. But it is honest poverty. And that in Florence is worth something. Perhaps not much, but something. Caterina de Falieri lives longest of all the principals. She survives Antonio by 20 years, living in their palazzo alone, except for a single servant, tending her garden, growing roses that are famous throughout Florence for their beauty and their scent. People come to her for wisdom. Not business wisdom, she never cared for finance, but the wisdom of someone who watched her husband destroyed by forces he could neither control nor comprehend, and who survived that destruction without becoming bitter. What did you learn? They ask her, these visitors seeking meaning in tragedy. Her answer is always the same, that some things should not be sold, not because they cannot be, but because selling them changes them into something else, something dark, something that devours the seller. But everything is sold, they protest. This is Florence. This is business. What is exempt? Faith, she says simply. love, truth, justice. The moment you price them, they become their opposites. Faith becomes manipulation, love becomes transaction, truth becomes lie, justice becomes revenge. Some things exist only as gifts. Try to sell them and they vanish, leaving only the price tag and the emptiness. This wisdom does not make her famous. Florence is not a city that rewards such ideas, but it makes her remembered, at least in certain circles, among certain people who understand that not all wealth is counted in florins. When she dies, aged 78, her garden is in full bloom. Roses everywhere, red and white and yellow, their scent filling the air like incense, like prayer, like beauty that exists for no other purpose than existence itself. The palazzo is sold, the garden is destroyed, replaced with a counting house, because this is Florence, and Florence counts. But sometimes, usually at dawn when the city is quiet and the Arno mist softens the marble facades, people swear they smell roses in that courtyard. Roses that should not exist, that cannot exist, that persist anyway, as if beauty, once planted deep enough, cannot be entirely uprooted. This is the end of the story, or the beginning, depending on how you count. Lorenzo's bank still operates under different names, different families, different methods, but the same essential logic. The church still collects money for prayers, still sells indulgences, still partners with power. Antonio's alternative, fair banking, transparent dealing, integrity over profit, is remembered as noble failure. An idea beautiful in theory, but impractical in Florence, where practicality means survival and survival means compromise. Yet the story persists, gets told and retold, changes with each telling until no one is certain what actually happened and what is embellishment. But the core remains, a banker who paid priests to curse competitors, who turned God into weapon, who won everything except what mattered, and who died understanding that some victories are indistinguishable from damnation. In the archives of Florence, in documents no one reads, Lorenzo's secret ledger still exists, the Libro Segreto where he recorded his true accounts. Scholars who find it, centuries later, will notice a peculiarity. The final pages are filled with calculations, but the calculations do not resolve. They spiral, become increasingly complex, attempt to balance equations that cannot be balanced. The last entry, written in Lorenzo's hand 3 days before his death, reads simply, "Paid everything, purchased nothing, account does not close." Below that, in different ink, perhaps added later, perhaps by Lorenzo himself in a moment of final clarity, 7 words: "Some debts are not denominated in florins." This is the lesson, if there is one. This is what Florence learned, or did not learn, or learned and forgot, or never learned at all, because some cities are doomed to repeat their errors with the precision of interest compounding, predictable and inevitable. The Banco of Heaven, it turns out, operates on different principles than the banks of earth. It accepts different currency, it calculates different returns, and it forecloses on different collateral, not property or gold, but the soul itself, that asset men forget they possess until the moment they discover they have already sold it. Above Florence, the dome of the Duomo still rises, that impossible achievement of geometry and faith. Inside, masses continue. Prayers rise like smoke. And somewhere in that rising, in that space between earth and heaven where words transform into meaning or meaninglessness, Lorenzo di Rossi's prayers might still echo, might still be heard, might still be working their effects through time and consequence. Or perhaps not. Perhaps they dissipated the moment they were spoken, vapor mistaken for substance, sound mistaken for action, words mistaken for power. No one knows. No one can know. That is the terrible freedom of faith, that you can never be certain, if anyone is listening, if your prayers matter, if God keeps accounts, or if accounting is simply what humans do to console themselves that someone, somewhere is watching and measuring and will eventually balance the books. In Florence, they build churches and banks with equal grandeur. They trust God and gold with equal fervor. They pray for grace and profit without seeing the contradiction. And perhaps that is the final truth, that there is no contradiction. That grace and profit, God and gold, prayer and banking have always been the same thing, viewed from different angles, named with different words, but ultimately identical in function. Lorenzo de Rossi understood this. That was his tragedy. Not that he was evil, but that he was honest about an evil everyone else preferred to keep hidden. The city built on banking and beauty continues. The Arno flows, the bells ring. And somewhere in the counting houses, in the churches, in the space between, the accounting continues. Always the accounting. Forever the accounting. The books never quite balance, but someone must keep trying, must keep calculating, must keep believing that if they just find the right equation, the right formula, the right prayer, everything will finally make sense. It never does, but they keep trying. That is faith. That is business. That is Florence. That is the story of the banker who paid priests to curse competitors, and what he learned, and what we learn from his learning, if we learn anything at all. Finis.